So I am also just going to share what my mantra is for this. So when I am recording video or speaking in front of people or doing anything where I'm speaking off the cuff, my mantra is that the words that I say are the words that will be most needed. Welcome to Confidently Visible, the podcast that helps you move through visibility blocks, including fear, resistance, and overwhelm, to share life-changing work with the world and grow your business and attract more beautifully aligned clients that rave about your work. I'm your host, Beck Sands, a visibility mentor, a certified life coach, and an award-winning PR consultant based in sunny Newcastle, Australia. Let me guide you on how to show up as your unique self, to share your incredible work, and to grow your audience with more consistency, ease, and flow. Whether you are a consultant, an entrepreneur, a CEO, a coach, or a creative, this is the space to unlock your uniqueness, to grow your audience, and to make a bigger impact, all while feeling good about being seen. The world needs to hear your message. So let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Confidently Visible podcast. So good to have you here today. I hope you're doing so well wherever you are listening in from in the world. Today, I want to be sharing with you how to let your content flow and ditch the script and speak more from the heart. Now, this has been something that has evolved in terms of my skill set over the lifetime of my business, the last 6.5 years since I've been in business full-time for myself. I feel like my skills in this area have absolutely evolved and they have transformed. I definitely was not speaking from the heart when I first started out. I mean, I was speaking from my heart in terms of content, but I was definitely reading a script and I was kind of reading from a little video prompter because I just didn't have the skill of speaking to camera yet and speaking off the cuff, right? And I say yet because if I can learn it, anyone can learn it. I was not your classically confidently visible person when I started out. I feel like there was definitely some things in life that knocked my confidence. And when I was in corporate, I absolutely didn't have the confidence to think that I was capable of being visible and that I should, and that, that I had something to say. I definitely held myself back. And so when I stepped into my business, I knew that I needed to do more speaking off the cuff and not just rehearsing everything and learning exactly what it was that I was going to say and then repeating that, because that is also a good thing to do, particularly if you've got a presentation, like a really big presentation that you need to give, and you need to learn some of those opening statements and things like that. But you also want to be able to speak off the cuff in your content, in your organic content, particularly long form content like video and like podcasts and interviews and things like that, so that you can really connect in with your audience. And so I'm going to be sharing on this topic today about why overthinking and scripting your content can make it feel a little bit more stiff and disconnected. I'm going to share some of the energetic differences between force content and flow-based content. And of course, I want to share with you that for these podcast episodes, I absolutely have an outline so that I don't just talk and talk and talk, and also so that I can kind of keep it a little bit concise. So I make sure that I reach, the points that I'm wanting to make rather than go off on a tangent on stories. But I absolutely don't script these out. So I am just talking to camera. I do this with my course content in the online consultant as well. So I do my teachings. I speak to the topic. And of course, I speak to the outline. I speak to the program. I speak to the topic at hand. But I'm not scripting everything. Now, it's totally up to you if you wanted to script some things. That's absolutely fine. But I think nurturing that skill of being able to speak off the cuff and trusting that the right content will flow through you, that the content and the topics and the stories that your ideal client and your audience really needs to hear from you right now, that will absolutely come to you and flow through you. And having that trust that will happen is so, so key to being able to share content from the heart that's not all pre-recorded. Okay, so I'm going to also share some simple mindset shifts so that you can stop overthinking and so that you can start trusting your voice a little bit more. I'll share some practical tips for creating content that feels natural, easy, and aligned so you can show up more and you can show up in a way that feels more flowing and aligned with yourself. Some and how to speak to one person, not the masses, for deeper connection, and also a visibility mantra to ground you before you share your message. So let's get into this episode. I'm excited to dive into this one. Okay, so I have definitely overthought content and it's come out like really, really stiff and rehearsed. Just think all of my earliest content. I mean, I think I actually have removed a lot of the earlier content from YouTube, not because it was terrible. I mean, it wasn't great. Like, let's just say I had a lot to do to learn. It was a little bit stiff and rehearsed. But that's not why I removed it. The reason I removed it was because it's confusing people with my message, because I have since changed the content that I share in terms of the messaging that I put out. I used to originally be more of a career coach alongside my PR consulting, and now I am doing, personal brand kind of mentoring. So confidently visible, mentoring, and as well as my PR consulting. And so it has quite changed a lot. So from that sort of career-focused coaching to now the visibility mentoring, although I do still support people with their careers and to be more confidently visible to grow aligned careers or businesses. But, that's kind of the reason. But in my content, in my early YouTube content, it was a little bit stilted and a little bit awkward to watch. And I think we've seen that kind of content where it just feels awkward. And truly the only way to move through that stage is to continue to show up and share your message and get better and better at speaking. And the beauty of this is that as you get better with your speaking off the cuff to camera through content or podcasting or so on and so forth, that will also improve your speaking skills and improve your presentation skills, because it's a similar thing in a way that it requires you to be able to speak off the cuff a little bit, or speak to bullet points, or speak to slides, so to speak. So when you're developing these skills, it's not just so that you can go live on Instagram. It's not just so that you can do a podcast, but this is going to support you with skills in front of your clients, in front of people at events. Like, this is really core skills that will support you in every single area of your life and business. Okay. So I am also just going to share what my mantra is for this. So when I am recording video or speaking in front of people or doing anything where I'm speaking off the cuff, my mantra is that the words that I say are the words that will be most needed. So the words that I say are the words that will be most needed. Another way of saying this is people need to hear what I have to say. People need to hear what I have to say. And you can take my mantras or you can, come up with your own, but something supportive to help you feel in alignment with your message and with what you're going to say before you get on and start to do that live stream, or you start to do that presentation, or you start to record that podcast, or whatever it looks like for you. But you want to really get yourself into that kind of aligned state so that you can really just let the words flow when you're speaking to the camera or to the audience, but off the cuff, and allowing those words to flow through you. So here's why overthinking leads to boring content. It's because that pressure to deliver everything perfectly leads to self-consciousness, and it leads to a bit of paralysis in terms of thinking about what we say, because we're just thinking about how we are being perceived as well. So we're like, I've really just got to say this content, if you're reading it out, but you're just thinking about, I'm so self-conscious right now. I really don't want to be here. How quickly can this be over? All of those things, right? But what you want to be actually thinking about, firstly, is the topic at hand. So what you're sharing, and diving as deeply as possible as you can into yourself, into your memory, into your expertise around these topics. But then also thinking, what do my audience need to hear? Like, what does my ideal client need to hear right now? What would help them to get the most out of this? What story can I remember that would really reflect what I'm saying and drive this home for people? And I think, it is important, particularly if you're giving a presentation, to have a think about like what those things are before you get on stage, and maybe have prompts in the way of slides or in the way of notes like I've got today in front of me for this podcast recording, but then allowing it to flow within those parameters, allowing it to come to you naturally. And I'll give you a few more tips around this, but it's really just speaking to your audience as though you were speaking with one friend, one supporter, one person in the audience. It's really about connecting in that way. So you're speaking to people, because every single person listening, every single person in your audience, they're all one person. And so it makes sense to be speaking with your audience as though they are all one person, because they're taking it in as one person with their own unique dreams and hopes and fears and goals and everything, right? So you want to be speaking to that one person. Okay. So how can you start to create flow-based content that resonates? So like I said, speak to that one person rather than as if you're speaking to 100 people or 1,000 people or a million people or whatever it is that you're doing. So don't worry about that. Like, just speak to that one person in your mind. It's likely to be your ideal client, that one person that you're speaking to. That works for me because it helps me to really connect in with what I think her pain points are and what she is going through at the moment and all of that sort of thing. So that's a really nice way to be able to think about it, is that like I'm just speaking to one person, is just my ideal client right now. Okay. And ask yourself, like, what does she need to hear today? Like, what about what I'm saying would really resonate and support her? And how could I pull in more stories and experiences from my own life and from, my own career, my own business that could potentially support her? Because when you're speaking off the cuff, like, it's generally you're having a one-way conversation or a one-way presentation, which it can be challenging. And this is why, like, the only way to do it is just to do it again and again. But when you're speaking, like I'm doing just a podcast here, I'm not actually getting any feedback necessarily as I'm going. And so I'm sort of used to it now. Like, I know that, I kind of imagine people nodding in my head, or I imagine someone listening in the car, or I imagine, someone walking along the beach and listening and having this in their ears. And they're kind of like, agreeing with what I'm saying or they're resonating. So you can kind of imagine your audience, but you're not actually getting that live feedback. And so that can make it challenging because you are kind of speaking in isolation, and there's definitely a skill to be had around that. When you've got an audience, you can kind of see when people are resonating or people are nodding or they're locking eye contact, and you can kind of get the energy from the room. But, regardless, you can still effectively speak to that one person, your ideal client, as if you're in the room with them or as if you're talking directly to them, and you can still show up and share and share organically and just share from the heart. Okay, so you can also use your content as a conversation rather than performative. So I think sometimes we think about, giving a presentation as performative, and there is an element to that. I really feel like there's an element of performance, but there's an element of that no matter what we're doing in our lives, right? Like, I feel like when you show up at work, there's an element of, hey, I'm this professional that shows up at work. And then you kind of slip into that. It's still you authentically, but it's just one, way that you show up. It's just one side of you that you show up as in that kind of work performance. It's the same as when you're speaking. There's absolutely a work performance. The way I'm speaking to you now, this is how I would speak probably if we were in a conversation or in a coaching session. Obviously, I'd be doing a lot more listening. It would be a lot more two-way. But, it's still performative. It's still like, this is how I show up for my clients. This is how I show up for my audience. Still who I am. But it's not me like lying on the couch watching TV with my husband. That's a different kind of version of me. And so I really think that's absolutely fine. But you want it to be a bit less of a performance if I'm making sense here. So you want it to be like, yeah, that's performative, but you don't want it to be wooden. Like, you don't want to be like, okay, I'm showing up, here I am now, and I'm reading off this script, and this is what I'm going to say right now. It's kind of like you want to still have an element of yourself in there and make it conversational, even though, yes, it's a little bit performative, because that's just the version of you that shows up in that way. But it doesn't need to be wooden. It doesn't need to be like fully rehearsed. It doesn't need to be fully scripted like you're reading off something. Okay, so using light structure will really help with this. So if you have a bit of an outline for things that you're going to talk about during your presentation, during your video, during your podcast, during your interview, that's great. I find when it's scripted, it's really hard to follow because unless you read it, which, we don't want to read things in those environments. We want to be able to ditch the script, right? So in these environments, you want to just have like a few light bullet points to prompt you as to the direction you want to go in next, but not have something fully scripted out because you'll lose your path. It'll be very confusing. It's hard to follow. And then you'll be like, stop, start, So the lighter, the better. And just really let go of the need to sound impressive or like everything and what you're talking about, because you're a contributor. You're not the expert of all things. No one expects you to know every single thing about every single topic. You're a contributor and you're sharing your perspective and you're sharing your thoughts and you're sharing your expertise and you're sharing your experiences, and that's it. And that's it. And some people will resonate with that and some people will not, and that's absolutely okay. All right. So let's look at the energetics behind the flow of content. Like I said before, it's really about trusting yourself that the right words will flow through and that the words will come to you as they are needed, and that you don't need a script to be able to get all your points across, because the right stories that will resonate will absolutely come to you. And it's about having that trust and cultivating that trust. And, sometimes I lose my place or sometimes I'll trip up, but I just keep going. I'm like, that just allows hopefully people to relate to me and go, oh yeah, like she makes mistakes too. Like that's fine. It doesn't really matter. It's like, this is just, if you just think of it as a conversation, it's like I'm just talking and I'm working to get, my point across, but also to help to provide as much value and provoke as many thoughts around this topic as possible. And hopefully I'm contributing in a way that will support you to move forward and to be more visible yourself and to achieve what it is that you're wanting to achieve in business and in your career. So really having that self-trust. And again, that really comes with experience and just doing it again and again and again. So how you can start to ground before you share or before you go live is you can just stop and put a hand on your heart and take a deep breath. And just say a mantra. So this could be, I am enough. I am enough. Just something really, really simple like that can really support you to move through these, like any kind of feelings that that you might have that are coming up that like, oh, am I going to be able to say everything I want to say? Or will it come out clunky? Or will this resonate? Or, all of those inner critic thoughts that come up that can really hold us back from sharing and from sharing our content. So you want to just take a deep breath and just say, I'm enough. That's it. I'm just a contributor. I'm enough. Okay. And just shift your perspective from, I hope this is good enough, to this is exactly what someone needs to hear right now. And you're not going to be for everyone, and that's okay. So you just want to be relevant for your ideal client, for the people that need to hear your message, for your audience. You don't need to appeal to every single person because you absolutely will not, and that's fine. So I want to share now your next action step for your visibility. So I would love to invite you today to record a very short video. It could be, 30 seconds, but just do it on your phone. Just take out your phone and record yourself just speaking to the screen, even for 30 seconds or a minute. And you can write down 3 bullet points about what you're going to speak about. Just record it. You can do this at home by yourself. No one ever has to see it, but I want to just invite you to give it a go and just speak to the screen. You could share your business story, or you could share how you're supporting your clients right now. You could share your vision for your business, something like that. Or you could just share on what you had for dinner last night or your favorite recipe. It can be anything, but just the point is to just write down 3 bullet points and then just record off the cuff and film yourself recording off the cuff to camera. And then you can play it back. You can play it back to yourself, and just be kind to yourself though, please. Like, be very kind to yourself. Just play it back neutrally and just kind of go, yeah, okay, like I'm an observer and, I'm giving myself feedback and it's constructive criticism. So how can I make this better? How could I make this even better? And then you can start to go from there. So you might give yourself feedback like, oh, I should definitely look into the camera a little bit more. Or, maybe there's something I do with my hands that, I'd like to do a little bit more of or do a little bit less of. So just be, a friendly, positive kind of critic to yourself and just look at how you can improve. And that's how you get better at things, is just by doing it again and again and again. So the most magnetic content is definitely the content that comes through you. It's not content that is scripted out. It is not, content that is from someone else's work. It's not content that is pre-written down to every last little word. It's content that flows through you, and that is going to be your most magnetic content that's going to connect with your audience in a big way. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. And if you have enjoyed this, I would absolutely love if you could share it with someone who you think might need to hear it, and leave a rating and review. Have the best day. Thank you for tuning in to Confidently Visible. I hope today's conversation inspired you to show up boldly, to share your unique gifts with courage, and to move through the visibility blocks that are holding you back. If you loved this episode, make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast, leave a rating and a review, and share it with a friend who needs to hear this. And if you're ready to become confidently visible in your business, head over to becksands.com to join my email list and to connect on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Until next time, keep showing up as the amazing, unique you that the world needs.